Sorry, we start a new play today. It's new play day, and we get to start in on Macbeth, which you will hear, well, you might not hear a lot of actors and theater persons saying the name of this play out loud, because this play is supposedly cursed. True story. And if you Google it, you can find lots of instances wherein people who have said the name of this play specifically while in a theater have had really, really bad luck. And what it boils down to, well, this is a play about witches and ghosts and ambition and murder and all sorts of crazy stuff. And these witch characters that are in it supposedly say some actual incantations. Like Shakespeare supposedly researched these characters enough that he used actual like witchcraft incantations. Now, how valid a point that is, I have no idea, because he might have just gone to like some old women who looked a little scary and was like, I need some incantations. And they're like, I have newt. Oh, and something, tongue of toad, whatever. And yeah, they could have just made all of it up and gave it to him, and then it was said to be like real witchcraft, whatever, because I don't want to offend any Wiccans that are out there. You know, that's not necessarily a thing, but it was a thing back in the day because King James was particularly scared of witches. So, and he thought that at one point he almost drowned because of witches, and he started like actual witch hunts in England and stuff like that. So when this play came out and it had these witches in it who were supposedly saying some, like casting some real spells and that sort of thing, theoretically some actual witches came to see the show. Maybe they were Wiccans, maybe they were witches, whatever they were. And they were so offended by it that they cursed it. So now, supposedly, if you say the name of this play in a theater, bad things will happen to you. And when I was in college, a woman who lived on my floor and was a very dear friend of mine was involved in a play that had like 4 people in the cast, like 3 men and her. And 2 of the men in the cast would stand behind the set every night before the play and shout the name of this play, not the play they were doing, this play, the Scottish play. They would shout the name of this play back and forth to each other as loud as they could because they sort of wanted to tempt the theater gods or whatever, bait them, blah, blah, blah. And in the course of that show, one guy's lung collapsed, another guy got in a motorcycle accident where he knocked his 2 front teeth out right before a performance, and he picked him up and he dusted him off and he shoved him back in his head and he went and he did the show anyway. And the woman who hadn't even been involved in the shouting back and forth like passed out one night and had to be rushed to the hospital, and it was like dehydration or exhaustion or something along those lines. So from my own experience, when the name of this play is said in a theater, bad things happen. So it makes me a little squirrely to say the name of the play too many times. It makes a lot of people a little squirrely to say the name of the play too many times. So oftentimes it's called the Scottish play because it takes place in Scotland, and sometimes it's called Mackers, which I hate. I just hate that. But it's also because half the characters in it, their names start with Mac. There's the title character and his wife who shares the last name, Lady Mac, but then there's also Macduff and Lady Macduff, and then there's MacDonald, and there's all sorts of Macs running around the place, because I think Shakespeare was also like, we're doing a Scottish play, let's make them all be Macs, or something along those lines. So anyway, getting to it now, intro to the play. I mentioned that there are witches. They kick off the play. In Act 1, Scene 1, we get these 3 witches getting together in the middle of a storm, and they're like, okay, maybe we should reconvene. But of course they're speaking in like creepy witch language. They're like, maybe we should reconvene at some other time, like maybe after this storm is over, and maybe after that little like war that's happening over there ends. So once that's done, we'll get together, and then we'll talk to Macbeth about the things that we have to say to him, and then they're like, and they leave, and that's Act 1, Scene 1. But today we get to hear from the captain, who in some versions is called the sergeant, in Act 1, Scene 2, where the King of Scotland, whose name is Duncan, is chatting with some other people, and it's important to know that the word Thane is a title that's bestowed upon people who weren't necessarily of noble birth, but it means that the king has given you lands and titles and all that sort of thing. So similar to in other Shakespeare plays where somebody's name is Gloucester, his name might actually have been, Richard Plantagenet or whatever, but he was the Duke of Gloucester, so they call him Gloucester in the play. So there's a lot of people in play who are going to be referred to by what they are the Thane of, like the Thane of Ross. And this Thane thing is important because at the start of the play, Macbeth is the Thane of Glamis. That's his lands, his titles, all that sort of thing is Glamis. But there's another Thane, the Thane of Cawdor, who has rebelled against Duncan, the King of Scotland. And that's what that little war over there was all about, was MacDonald, the Thane of Cawdor, had gotten a bunch of people together and they were revolting against Duncan. So at the beginning of Act 1, Scene 2, Duncan is there with a few other people, and this soldier comes in, or this captain / sergeant, depending on which version you're reading, and he's injured, but Duncan wants to know how things are going. So like, tell us, this guy's going to know more about the battle than anything else. So tell us, like, how's the field? How's the war going? And the captain says, doubtful it stood, as two spent swimmers that do cling together and choke their art. The merciless MacDonald, worthy to be a rebel, for to that the multiplying villainies of nature do swarm upon him. From the western isles of kerns and gallogroses is supplied, and fortune on his damned quarry smiling showed like a rebel's whore. But all's too weak, for brave Macbeth, well he deserves that name, disdaining fortune, with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution like valor's minion, carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which never shook hands, nor bade farewell to him, till he unseamed him from the nave to the chops, and fixed his head upon her battlements. So, it's an exposition monologue, yay! And basically what he's saying is the battle it looked like it could go to anybody. It was kind of a tie, and nobody seemed to be winning, and MacDonald had all these supporters from Ireland like on his side, and things seemed to be going well. But then Macbeth shows up, and he goes in, and he's kicking butts left and right, and he comes face to face with MacDonald and kills him, cuts off his head, puts it on a spike, all that sort of fun stuff. And they're like, yay! And the captain's like, oh, but there's more. Right about the time that happened, Norway invaded. So then we had more going on, and it was too much for me to take. So he kind of passes out, and they take him off to get medical help. But then somebody else comes in. Ross, the Thane of Ross, comes in and is like, you know what? It's okay, because Macbeth and Banquo, our two other guys, also took care of Norway and won everything for us, and they have MacDonald, and they took care of MacDonald, all that sort of thing. And Duncan is like, this is fantastic, that's great, I'm so glad that they won things for me, and as a reward for his bravery, we're going to bestow upon Macbeth not only the title of Thane of Glamis, but he is going to become the Thane of Cawdor, which MacDonald was, but doesn't get to be anymore since he revolted against me. So that's how that's gonna go. And that's basically the end of Act 1, Scene 2. We haven't met our title character yet, but we know that he's very good in battle, and he has just been given a brand new title. He is now the Thane of Cawdor, in addition to being the Thane of Glamis. So yeah, I talked a little too long and my light died. Yeah, so there's plenty more left to this play, and we got to find out what the witches have to tell him, and we need to meet him, which we will do in a couple of days, I think. I don't think we get to hear from him tomorrow, do we? Nope. We get to spend some time with the witches tomorrow. Yay! That'll be fun. I'll see you then. Mwah.